Hello, folks. Do you know why I like Sanctuary? Well, like it or not, I'm going to explain why, and it's very relevant to the point of this video. This thought surfaced from my brain in the form of mass amounts of fucking frustration earlier this afternoon. The game I was playing was Path of Exile. Now, some of you guys are probably already sitting there thinking, well, this ought to be good. So here's the beginning of it all. I was initially playing Black Desert, and still currently and technically playing Black Desert right now. But I'm AFK leveling up horses while the game is minimized, so Path of Exile was my fallback game to kill time. So while I decided to give in to my masochistic desires and enjoy getting my shit pushed in on an ARPG, I decided to level up some of my masters in my hideouts. And for anyone unfamiliar with what I mean in that last statement, don't worry about it, it's not really relevant to our story. Just know that it's a slight deviation from directly progressing my character. Now, for the first 10 to 12 minutes or so, the game was very enjoyable. It was fun, even, but immediately following these 12 minutes was pure pain and anguish. I decided to work on Zanna, an endgame master who becomes available only when you've beaten the main game and officially have progress on maps, which is your endgame content. Now, maps are cool, they're procedurally generated, and they can be an absolute arduous pain in the fucking ass if you cannot obtain them quickly, easily, and progress to higher tiers with minimal issues. Now, I, for the most part, don't suffer too terribly on this department. However, one easy cheat for getting better maps is to increase your favor with Zanna, who sells you said maps. So I decided to take on her daily, which it was a pretty simple one, to be sure. Find 5 of these stones inside of this map, activate them, get out, simple enough. Add in a 5-minute countdown on top of it, which added a little bit of pressure, but ultimately, still simple. Now here's where the anime begins to reach the plot twist. So, the rocks were pretty small, and I never did this mission before, so I didn't quite know what I was looking for. This isn't super important, however it adds up to this domino effect of absolute bullshit that was about to fucking unfold. So, because I have no idea what I'm looking for, I ran right by the rock, which led me to stepping out just a little too far. Next thing I knew, there were about like 30 regular and magical grade enemies hurling fucking projectiles at me. Because why not add ranged enemies to the formula while we're already at it, right? Now, those of you familiar with ARPG games and how they work understand spike damage, and that getting hit with too many attacks in too short a time frame at just the right moment is a kiss of death. It was no different in this situation. As I was doubling back to touch the stone, I realized I'd missed. I'd realized my fate and died immediately afterwards. Not because too much damage, not because I didn't bob and weave my way out of a clusterfuck of magical flaming balls that were ready to smack me in the goddamn face, but because shortly after this 10-cent kill squad materialized into fucking existence, my client hung for about a solid 2 seconds. Now, ladies and gentlemen, 2 seconds is a long fucking time to be sitting still and not defending yourself in an ARPG. No potions, no movement, just death. Do not pass go, do not collect your quest rewards, time to die, you filthy peasants. Needless to say, I closed my game after this shit. So, now this leads us to the start of the video. What the hell does this have to do with a game like Sanctuary? Besides the RPG mechanics, these games have almost nothing in common. Well, this particular situation has everything to do with why I'm making this video, in fact, and why I love Sanctuary so much. Look at the game while it's running in the background, and you can see what I mean. This point being that Sanctuary is simple, it runs clean, it's fast, and all in all, the only time I'm ever impeded in any way while playing it is due to my own skill or my own way of playing the game. Now, most of that is due to the fact that it's a simple text-based DOS RPG game, but it's still important to my point regardless. Now, it bears mentioning that in Path of Exile, your character progression can be pretty grind-heavy, as is the nature of RPGs and ARPGs. There's one specific mechanic that goes right up my ass in this game, though, which is that when you complete the game and move on to maps, you will then lose 10% of your experience required to reach your next level every time that you die. When you hit the late 90s, that really begins to add up. Now, let's go ahead and do a little bit of maths here. At level 95, and I looked this shit up, you need almost 240 million experience to reach level 96. According to this article that I read, 40 to 45 million experience an hour is very good. 80 million is even better and also attainable in the Tier 13 Shaped Shore map. That is about 3 hours of grind at one of the best possible ways to grind experience that I was able to Google that's recent. And that assumes that you don't die one single time in 3 hours, which is much easier said than done, at least for me, and I'm running Tier 1 maps. One death will cost you 24 million experience, which is more than half an hour of progress at 45 mil an hour, or a little over 15 minutes if you're grinding at 80 mil an hour on that Shaped Shore map that we were talking about. That's a lot of fucking time by RPG standards, where efficiency is everything, and that's just assuming that you had one fluke and died one time by accident. Imagine dying 3 to 4 times accidentally, back to back, or not even being able to viably complete the map at all, so your experience an hour becomes even slower than that 40 to 45 mil an hour that you're getting. A level up in Path of Exile Endgame is like gold compared to Diablo 3 Paragon, by the way. If you're unaware, let me do a little bit more math even further into this one. So, a level up in Path, right? That is one passive skill point. One passive point can be virtually anything, by the way, provided that you're adjacent to the node that your passive skill tree already has, like, unlocked as you've been leveling up. One Paragon after 800 in Diablo 3 is essentially worthless. Absolutely worthless. It's literally 5 fucking dexterity or whatever that your main stat is, because you don't put it on anything else. It's just not worth it. And that's 5% extra damage. Now, your typical damage increase from your main stat in Diablo 3 Endgame is several thousands of percent increase, which is at least like 7k when you're pretty decently geared at level 70 with full legendaries and shit. And what does that mean exactly? It's actually really important. So that 7,000% right there, percentile increases in stats in RPG games are what stat crunchers like myself refer to as diminishing returns. And what that means is that the more that you have, the less that you get out of it. Percents mean absolutely nothing without a base stat, without an actual number to increase that stat by percentile. Which means that the higher they get, the less important they become. And 5% is fucking negligible compared to a passive. Most of your Path of Exile passives on top of it increase your damage by at least 10%, which is already statistically double than a Paragon point. Combined with seeing percentile damage increases from your passives being like astronomically lower than Diablo 3 7,000% and up from your main stat means that a passive point is very valuable, which means that I do not want to impede my progress with getting to it, which also means that I get very aggravated when I die, which also means that it's an absolute fucking kick in the gonads every time that the game fucking freezes. And it's very frequent, and I get killed over it a lot. Not the first time that this happens. This is not even putting into consideration lagging out and rubber banding back into other points, which is also very frequent. The game is just not very polished. I'm sorry if I sound like very negative, by the way, guys. It's just a very big pet peeve of mine in video games, and I was reminded of that today again, which is a very important value to me with video games in general. Which is, just very simply put, why the hell am I going to allow myself to get aggravated about a game because of its shitty performance? And it's kind of a standard go fuck yourself response among PC gamers these days, where whenever you complain at all about performance in any way, shape, or form, everybody always just tells you, well, go ahead and upgrade your computer, as they circle jerk over their fucking dual GTX 1080 Ti fucking SLI setups that they have and everything, but you get what my point. And logically, sometimes it's just not possible. We all have duties, responsibilities, and namely other expenses, like myself, that require us to put that shiny new graphics card on the back burner until we get our lives situated long enough to splurge. Granted, don't get me wrong, I don't have very high standards for a constant, 60 frames per second without dipping for every bloody game that I play, but there's one thing that I can't stand on a game, which is freezing and hanging. Those momentary lapses of time where you just can't do anything. and you just sit there and you wait in horrible anticipation to see if that boss in Bloodborne that you've been fighting for the last hour and a half just suddenly turned around on 3 points of health and actually killed you or not, but the game hung and you're just waiting there like, oh shit, did I dodge out of the way or not? Like, you know what I mean? So, see, I don't have these problems with Sanctuary RPG. The game loves me. And I recently found out that I can save scum every time that I die stupidly, so that's a plus too. But anyway, I just wanted to touch base on that and just talk about that for a little while and just vent on how much of a pain in the ass that can be. It also contributes to a large reasoning as to why I'm not playing Escape from Tarkov right now, because there's just a lot of lag issues. Apparently there was a big hackers thing going on with that as well, and just a million other problems with that game that I just don't even feel like getting into right now. Like, it's just been a shit show on EFT. So anyway, thank you guys for sticking around long enough, assuming that you made it to the end of that video right there. If you want to see more rants, well, let me know, and I'll be working on them more anyway in the future regardless. So I'll catch you guys later. Take it easy. Don't tell people to buy better PCs whenever they're complaining about their performance, because there's probably a good reason why they're using that potato processor that you're making fun of. Just saying. Other people have priorities. Later.